What's up, everybody? How's everybody doing? Welcome to the Safety, Scissors, and Duct Tape podcast. We're hanging out here. I'm Safety Scissors.
And I'm Duct Tape.
This is episode 1 of the podcast.
Yeah, it's like the pilot episode where we kind of sort of don't know what we're doing, but there's a camera and we're going to talk.
So we've been hanging out online and we decided to start a podcast for numerous reasons.
Well, when the whole pandemic started, we're both extroverts, okay? And the pandemic hit and we didn't have any way to have friends over anymore. Yeah. And it was just kind of stressful. Mm-hmm. And so I said, well, what if we went on Instagram Live? Yeah. And so we started hanging out on my Instagram. And we started getting like regulars coming in. And sometimes our live sessions would go like 3 hours.
Oh, yeah.
Where it was just us talking. And if you guys have an Instagram, you know, like you can't talk physically with the person who's doing the streaming. You can just write into the chat. So people would be fine coming in and like texting us every once in a while, like a word, but they wanted to hear us talk. Mm-hmm. And we've been doing this since March.
Yeah. And on Instagram, there's about a 15-second delay.
Yeah.
So basically, we decided, let's go live and let's have some fun with people. So we did everything from just chatting about current events and what was going on in the world to just things
playing games.
Playing
Pictionary.
Playing Pictionary. And
90's trivia.
Yeah, 90's trivia was a lot of fun. But, we just did everything we could to just
be
hang
social.
Out. Yeah.
Be social. And what brought us to starting a podcast was when I realized that people are enjoying hearing us chat and chatting with us, and the banter that we have back and forth has been wonderful. And I said, you know what? We have managed to make a group of friends out of the 10 or so people that hang out with us on Instagram Live. People that never would have even met if it weren't for my Instagram Live. And I was like, what if we can reach an even bigger group of people and make a bigger group of friends? The Safety, Scissors, and Duct Tape family. Or we toyed around with calling it the toolbox earlier. Like, join the toolbox. And then I was like, does that mean that we just called our friends tools?
Yeah. But, become a part of our tool set.
I don't know, man. But we'll look, this is beta release. We're working on it, but
we're version 0.18. We haven't hit the 1.0.
Oh my goodness. But it's just something that we wanted to try. And that's one of the things that we love to do is just, we get an idea and we want to try it and see if it works. And I think a podcast could be so much fun because both of us love to talk. I don't know if y'all have noticed that, but both of us love to talk.
We both definitely have some vocal cords on us.
Oh, yeah. And just this will allow us to continuously bring the content to people that maybe don't have an Instagram and want to hang out with us, but maybe can't do it when we do it because we keep doing it at like 9:30 at night. Yeah. And maybe they're not free, but maybe they want to be a part of it. So this will hopefully allow those conversations to happen organically in a way that everyone can be a part of.
Oh, yeah.
So,
and we have friends in like Germany.
Yeah.
Who join us.
Stay up till 3, 4, 6 a.m.
And we have a couple people that are, West Coast, so they're a couple hours behind us. So we have such a wide variety of time frame. And, we've actually had people ask us, hey, can you guys do it at this time or this time? And unfortunately, due to work or teaching, we don't have that capability of doing it at like X time of the day. So the podcast is a way for people to get that interaction that we give them on live with Instagram, but, at whatever time they want.
The only difference really is that if you're listening to the podcast instead of being with us on Instagram Live or YouTube Live or wherever we happen to be, you can't type in like answers or questions or, you can't fully interact with us. However, you can, because you can always send us a message and we'll include your question or your topic in our next podcast. So this still allows for that back and forth. It's just a little bit slower. Not as slow as snail mail, not as slow as email, but a little bit slower than 15-second delay. So
But we're planning on making this a weekly podcast, so that way we can reach your ears and your eyes at least once a week.
We feel like we can commit to once a week, because I know that we both have one night off per week, and why not fill it with something?
So
I'm such a workaholic.
So, like we have the day off. I have an idea. Let's film a lot. But
so is this podcast going to be just us talking about random things? Yes and no. Like any podcast, this does have like an angle, basically an overarching theme, I suppose. And it's something that we've been talking about a lot. We've been struggling a little bit with the current world, and it's not just 2020, everybody's struggling with the world, but it's like recently there's been a lot of things that both of us are just kind of like, I don't get it, or like, things were so much simpler when we were kids. We're just a couple of 90s kids is what this is, and we both have such a love for the 90s. Like, I think we were saying yesterday, man, I would go back to the 90s, even if it meant there was no YouTube, even if it meant that, and trust me, YouTube is like my thing right now, even if it meant that I was the awkward teenager that I would go back to the 90s because I just loved it so much, and everything was better back then. And so that's given us like this angle of, well, why don't we talk about the world today, the things that we want to talk about, but also talk about 90s trivia, but also talk about movies that we love, and also talk about music that we love. Well, what kind of theme is that? And then I was just kind of like a couple of 90s kids navigating the world today. So that's the theme. Couple of 90s kids navigating the world today.
Because I know a lot of us lived in the 90s, grew up in the 90s, and missed the 90s. So even people that didn't live in the 90s, they missed the 90s and the fashion, the styles, and things like that.
There's so much that I miss. And
one of the things that we were talking about is, like you just said, like the things that we miss from the 90s. What are some of the biggest things that you miss from the 90s?
Well, I'll tell you what I don't miss. All of the clothes that I still have from the 90s and still wear on a regular basis, like my low-rise bootcut jeans. And don't at me. Don't be upset with me for that, because I can like what I want to like. And all of my Green Day CDs, I still have them. The actual CDs in the actual like CD cases. I still have it. And well, that's not fashion, but honestly, Green Day was fashion. So,
but it's 90s things that you still have that you still.
Oh yeah, I don't
cherish.
miss those because I still have them and still love them. Things I miss from the 90s: riding your bike to go places and just hanging out with friends, but without planning it on social media first, if that makes sense.
I miss like you said, riding your bike, but I rollerbladed to my friend's house and they rode their bike, and I miss knowing that I had to be home before the street lights came on. Otherwise, I was grounded.
I think that's the spontaneity of hanging out with people in the 90s. And adults felt that spontaneity too. Like you could call ahead, but sometimes you just went over to your friend's house and knocked on the door. I don't remember the last time I did that. I don't remember the last time I even went to my friend's house. It's so much, or even called my friend. It's so much easier to go, hey, are you home? Great. Can you meet me in the driveway? I have something to give you. Like, no. There was a spontaneity to, I'm going to go to my friend Sarah's house and see if she's home.
And it was like an adventure because you were like, well, I'm going to go all the way there and see if they're home. But there's a good chance that they might not be. But you know what? You're going to do something. You're going out. You're going to have fun.
Yeah.
It was a lot more of a relaxed time. It wasn't like, I have to be here at this time.
I think it's the relaxed time. I think you hit the nail on the head with that, because it's like, it wasn't just because we were kids either. It was just a simpler time. And I don't want to sound like a grandma, but it really was a simpler time of just, I feel like there was less drama. I mean, there was plenty of drama in pop culture, but I feel like there was also just less drama because it was much harder to have what happened to Chris Evans the other day happen in real life. It was much more difficult for that to happen.
There was less outlets for people to do bullying or things like that, where it had to be a direct thing or passing a note in school.
Less outlets, but that doesn't mean I didn't get bullied.
Oh, no, I did too. 100%. I will openly admit I was bullied a lot.
Oh my gosh, I was like the least popular person ever in my school. But
in my high school, I bullied the other kid because it was myself.
What?
I homeschooled through high school.
Oh, right.
So.
I was like, wait, what?
No, but growing up, I was the kid who got bullied. So I was like, I'm going to be the cream of the crop now.
Yeah.
And I wasn't. I was still the average student.
Oh my God. You know what I miss?
Huh.
Trapper Keepers. Even today, I'm sitting here like, man, if I had a Trapper Keeper, I would be a whole lot better off when it came to like organizing all of my dance notes. I could keep multiple notebooks in there instead of just like multiple notebooks in my bag. Why are Trapper Keepers not cool anymore?
I was never an organized kid or adult,
Still?
so I don't have a clue why Trapper Keepers aren't still popular. I don't know if they are.
I haven't seen any. I mean, you get like zipper binders, but I'm talking about like a Trapper Keeper.
Yeah, I'm at loss for words because I don't organize. So
lame organization is the coolest. I sound like a 90's school commercial now. Like, school is cool.
The more you know.
You know what else I miss?
What?
Shows like Reading Rainbow and Mr. Rogers and Bill Nye the Science Guy, although I think Bill Nye has some shows.
I think you came back.
Educational shows actually being cool. There aren't any right now that I know of that adults would watch too that are actually like that. I'm sure there are educational shows. Like you watch like Forged in Fire. That is a very educational show. It's very niche educational show, but like you still, I don't know. I guess it turned into reality TV. Shows like Reading Rainbow and Bill Nye the Science Guy turned into reality TV. And now instead of learning about cool science stuff or learning about like books, we're learning about what this housewife said about this other housewife and why she's really mad about it.
I remember as a kid, like, where in the world is Carmen Sandiego?
I loved that show. I learned so much.
The game show. You remember the game show? Yeah. I learned a lot of my knowledge from the world based on that show. I mean, I learned a lot in school too, but you had fun and you didn't even realize you were learning because you were like, oh, what's the answer? And then you were like, I really want to know the answer so that way I could find Carmen Sandiego. And the structure of these things were set up so that way you could actually learn and have fun. And now, you know, it's not structured that way. I'm sure there are kids shows that are like that, but it's more direct learning and things like that. And I definitely miss those kind of programming. And then, of course, you know, your typical TGIF.
I have a question, though.
Yeah.
Was Rockapella on actual Carmen Sandiego, or was that on the Saturday Night Live spoof of Carmen Sandiego, the Where in the World is Sandiego, California? Was that Mad TV? Rockapella was on one. I think it was on the spoof. Because there was... Okay, I forget what I was watching. It was either Saturday Night Live or Mad TV or even All That. Could have been All That. I don't know. Or In Living Color. Any of those shows. Wait, give me 2 seconds and we'll talk about those shows. But on one of them, it was like a spoof of Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego, and they called it Where in the World is San Diego, California. And literally the first contestant goes, it's right there on the map. You have a red dot. And there's, okay, game show over. Rockapella, sing us away. And then they're just, Rockapella. And that's it. And I don't know why I had that memory, but I have that memory.
I don't remember that, but I do remember there being music when they were leaving. I remember the host lady.
Yeah.
It was like the captain or the chief.
Yeah. Gumshoes.
Yeah. I remember her voice was so distinct.
Very.
I don't remember. I know she's a famous actress. I don't remember her name, though.
I don't know either. But wait, can we just talk about In Living Color and All That? I'm not a big Saturday Night Live fan. Don't kill me for that. But, like, I'm not a big Saturday Night Live fan. I hated Mad TV. I don't know what it was about Mad TV. I just couldn't stand it. But I really enjoyed All That. And maybe it was just the age thing, because I was about the age of the people on All That when it was on. And the jokes made more sense to me. And they referenced shows I actually watched. And then there was In Living Color. I think I watched In Living Color just for the dancers. Because I was so obsessed with the idea of being a backup dancer one day. I wanted to be one of Madonna's backup dancers. So I watched In Living Color just for the dancers. They had dancers, right?
Oh, yeah. That's the one that Jennifer Lopez started.
Yeah. So I was like, that's the show I'm talking about, right? And then later on as an adult, I started watching clips of the actual show, realizing I never paid attention to the actual show. I only watched the dancers.
I was a huge In Living Color fan. I loved the Wayans. I loved Jim Carrey and all them on there. And growing up, I wanted to be a comedian. I wanted to be an actor. And I would watch Jim Carrey and mimic him because I loved his style of humor. Very his physical comedy and things like that, and how just Harry can morph his face, and I was just like, that is so cool.
He's one of my favorite actors and comedians ever. Also, he tap dances. Just saying.
I remember reading that when he was a kid, he used to sleep with his tap shoes on because he never knew if he had to wake up in the middle of the night and go cheer up his parents or make anyone laugh and have fun.
That's so cute.
Yeah, so
oh my goodness.
Really cool. But yeah, the variety shows.
Variety shows, yes.
Or the skit shows.
Yeah. And now I'm thinking of other shows. Like there are so many shows that I miss from the 90s. There's also music that I miss from the 90s. And I just want to say, like, it's not that music today isn't great. It's just, it's not real. Okay, major confession. Recently, I fell in love with country music. And a lot of people are looking at me. I am a punk rock, pop punk, alternative girl. My whole life, that's the genre that I've loved. And my friends are looking at me like, really, Jen? Country? And I realized the other day why. It's because it's one of the few genres that are constantly right now producing music, and pretty much all of it is raw instrumentation, like punk rock used to be, like pop punk used to be. Pop punk still kind of is. It's why I like bands like Mayday Parade and I just totally forgot the other one, Stages and Stereos. It's why I like those bands, because they are raw instrumentation. And there's nothing electronic in it. Nothing against electronic music, but as a musician and somebody who just wants to hear a garage band because I like punk, you don't hear that. You don't get that at all. Even the alternative station, everything is digital music now. And I just want to hear somebody play the guitar. I want to hear somebody slide down the fretboard. I want to hear somebody's stick actually hitting the rim. You know, I want to hear all of the music. And I think we've lost that since the 90s and 2000s. We've really lost that. Most popular music today is all electronic based. And a lot of people would be like, yeah, down with autotune. Listen, I love autotune. Autotune corrects it when I am this flat on a note. Okay, autotune's great. But country music. I don't know where I went with that, but I fell in love with country music, and people are surprised. Okay, I'm backtracking. People are surprised, and it's because the music of the 90s was so real. And that's what I miss. Green Day was so real. Their first album was garbage sounding, but it was that kind of garbage sound that punk rockers love.
And in the 90s, there was a lot of political agendas behind the music. There was also a lot of...
Especially in hip-hop and in punk.
And in punk. Everyone had a voice, and everybody wanted to have that opinion. They were an artist, and they wanted to be heard.
Yeah, I don't feel like songs have that anymore. I mean, rarely you'll find a song that hits a political point. Rarely you'll find a song that hits like a peace in the world kind of point these days. But back in the day, I mean, I'm just thinking my college years. Rise Against was one of those bands. First of all, they're always playing their instruments. No digital, I mean, some digital like manipulation, some digital sound aspect, but there's instrumentation in there. And everything that they sang about was relevant. Everything that they sang about was very to a point. And they wanted to tell a story, and they wanted to evoke a feeling. I don't get that from music today. I got that in all the music from the 90s. Every word Alanis Morissette ever sang was kind of weird, but she was making a point. Fiona Apple, always making a point. I'm going to get out of Lilith Fair for a minute. Green Day was always making a point.
You know, things people like Tupac, Biggie, you know, different artists in the hip hop genre.
Tupac? Really?
That's also from the 90s.
Yeah. Tupac's most famous song, California Love. What was that about?
It's got a lot of different...
Well, what's a Tupac song? I almost said Tupac again. What's a Tupac song that did have a major agenda? Like, whether it's political or just societal, like what's happening out there. Because I feel like Tupac sang about what was really happening in the not glamorous parts of LA and trying to draw attention to that.
A lot of his music, like California Love and different things like that, were a lot about things that were happening to his culture, to his area. You know, the the disrespect, the segregation, the different things that were happening in the urban culture. So he was very like, we're being hurt, we're being killed, we're being lied to, and no one cares. Mm-hmm. So he was very big on, letting that known. It was, along with other artists, they were very big on just wanting to be heard. And unfortunately nowadays, a lot of music, they just want to be heard for money or heard for radio play. Back then, they wanted to be heard because they wanted to make a change. People like Common or Talib Kweli, who basically made sure that they stayed true to themselves. They wouldn't sell out to do, big name labels but they were like, oh, you have to do like this cheesy pop music. No, they wanted real music and real words.
They definitely didn't sell out to the big labels. I don't know who they are.
Yeah.
I was like sitting here, like my eyes are going right, left, right. I'm like, I don't know who that is.
And for those of you that don't know, we come from different backgrounds in music.
He's rap, hip hop, and I am like garage punk and pop punk. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, we would not have been friends in high school.
I had a lot of like punk friends, but I think it was also because the mentality that we had were the same. We didn't like what was being done and how people were being treated and controlled.
Yeah, but honestly, punk and hip hop had the same agenda when it came to what they were trying to inspire in the people listening to it. It doesn't mean like anarchy in the USA. That's not what it is. It's more like, look at what's happening. This needs to change. Mm-hmm. Maybe they had different methods of it changing, but they really made such a beautiful point in all of their songs. And I think that does draw us together because both of us wanted songs with real meaning in it. The lyrics to all of Green Day's songs are really important. System of a Down is another one. Rise Against. They don't sing about it. They don't sing about anything that's not worth singing about. Mm-hmm. And I know Rise Against and System of a Down aren't quite in the punk genre, but it's very dark alternative. It's very political alternative, almost. And it's so funny because we're not political people. Mm-mm. We don't speak about politics, but we feel them, we understand them. And that's another thing, as a 90s kid, navigating the world today, politics are a whole different thing. Mm-hmm. You know what I miss? Politics from the 90s. That's what I miss from the 90s. The way politics were handled. And, there's so much that I miss. Can we just can we get on a lighter subject real quick and talk about popples?
Oh.
We had a whole conversation in our kitchen yesterday about popples and how much we miss them and how we owned so many. I definitely had the yellow one, and you said you had the orange one.
I had the orange one because I was the orange one in kindergarten, which would have been in 87.
Wait, you were the orange one? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was not a popple ever for Halloween. But I was a Care Bear. And that almost counts. So I do miss the Care Bears too.
I remember watching the Care Bears. I remember
Eureka's Castle.
I remember watching Gummy Bears. I remember watching like all those Disney and Nickelodeon shows. And
how about toys?
Toys.
We were just talking about popples. What toys do you miss from the 90s? Everyone that's listening to this is going to be like, oh my God, they're hitting my nostalgia buttons so hard.
I think toys wise, I mean, I'm a very old school gamer. I love at that point it would have been Sega Genesis would have been.
That was my jam. I still own mine. I still have one.
Yeah, the Genesis and the
NES.
Super Nintendo, and then the NES was coming to its end at that point,
Not in my house.
Yeah. Not in mine. I still had it. I had both of them hooked up. I just switched the wires every time I wanted to play. But as far as toys, I miss my Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, I was gonna say I miss my X-Men action figures because I was a bit of a tomboy growing up. I never played with Barbies unless I was at my friend's house because she was like, let's play Barbies. And I'm like, how do you play Barbies? They don't fight each other. But I really liked collecting comics. I liked Pogs. And I loved X-Men action figures. I loved action figures in general, but nowadays everybody buys action figures and they just stay in the box, or they buy pop figures. You can't really do stuff. I would have the X-Men training, it's almost like a diorama, but it was, like a staging set. Yeah. And then I would get my X-Men characters and I'd make up these stories and they would play together. I was like Wash on Firefly with his dragons, dinosaurs, or what's that part? Spaceballs, where Dark Helmet has the figures of themselves. So it was like that, but I miss that. I just don't feel like
that fun.
That happens anymore. And it's not just because we're adults, it's because kids are, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with technology, but kids don't play with action figures anymore. They play with video game characters. They play Among Us. They play whatever the little kids play on. Okay, but the good news is that most of the things that the little kids have access to, the games that they have on iPads and stuff like that, there's an educational component to it most of the time, so they do get to learn things. But I think there's something to be said for the way kids used to be able to use their imagination, not scratch that, the way kids had to use their imagination back in the 90s. What did we really play with? Yes, action figures. How do you play with action figures? You make up the story in your head. What else did we play with? We played with art sets. We played with pieces of paper and markers.
You played with your friends and pretended to be a Power Ranger or a Ninja Turtle or...
Yeah, or like, I mean, I was a tomboy, but I did hang out with a lot of girls. So we would pretend to be like secretaries. I don't know why we did that. Or we would pretend to own a fashion magazine, or we pretended. We played pretend. I pretended to be a puppy a lot. I loved being a puppy. It was fun.
It's interesting.
Yeah. So there's just a lot that we miss from the 90s. And I think that this, as a first episode, is perfect because it's us talking about what we miss from the 90s, leading us into every episode after this where, yeah, here's our perspective. A bunch of kids, or two kids that missed the 90s. And okay, well, we're stuck here. It's like we were in a time machine and we got to the wrong decade. And
we hit the wrong button.
I guess we're stuck here. How do we navigate this? How do we understand the world around us, even though we're kind of just stuck? I mean, if you came to our house, I feel like this is a very 90s house. Like aside from the recording equipment that we've got going on right now and the fact that we constantly live stream and do YouTube, I don't really feel like this is any different from the house I grew up in. It has more pairs of tap shoes in it.
I think it's a good thing that, we got to use our imagination and we had to use our imagination, as you said, and now here we are talking to imaginary people.
But that's the other thing, is that I think what makes us really successful at being able to do these streams and being able to... Wait a minute. I started noise complaint because I'm a 90s kid. Oh my goodness. Okay, so for anyone that doesn't know, I'm the artistic director of a tap dance company, a professional tap dance company. But we're not just tap dancers. We play pretend. We really do. We tap dance, but at the same time, we play specific characters from pop culture. For one of our sets, we're 90s cartoon characters. Gee, I wonder. I'm Bubbles from Powerpuff Girls.
And I'm Michelangelo from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Right? And then for another set, it's our Kingdom Hearts / Disney revamp set. We've recycled that set a lot. And I'm Alice from Alice in Wonderland, and you are Fred
from Big Hero 6 now.
Yeah, you used to be Nick Wilde.
I was Nick Wilde from Zootopia when it was the Disney set.
And we have other members as well who are all these different characters. And then our recent set that we filmed yesterday, I'll talk about in a second. But literally we tap dance, but there's, let's say, 10 to 12 tap dances in a whole show. We do an hour-long show. In between each of those, these characters go on an adventure. And okay, I'll talk about the video game show. We just filmed it yesterday. My character is named Noobity-Doo. And Noobity-Doo... I know, right? Noobity-Doo is a pro gamer, and she is so sick of video games that have DLC as a requirement in order to finish the game or get the best characters or get the best gear. She is trying to create a level playing field for gamers that's based on skill, not finances, which... I love that idea. Anyway, so she gets sucked into the video game. And you have to watch our show to find out exactly how that goes. But basically, she goes through this whole storyline in the video game, interacting with characters from other games. Like, there's a character from the Mario world, and there's a character from Street Fighter, and there's a character from all these different games. And she has to interact with all these different characters. And she is in me. So I'm playing pretend. It's as if I'm playing with my action figures. But I'm one of them, too. And I swear... all of this is because I'm a 90s kid.
Mm-hmm. I bet you it's a lot easier when because if you guys don't know, she's the one that usually visualizes the story.
I write the script and create the whole story.
And I think if you didn't come from that background, it would be a lot harder for you to imagine this whole new world that doesn't exist.
See, I blame me doing that on the fact that I'm an author and a story writer. But I actually think it goes back further than that. I think I do this and I'm an author and a story writer because I played pretend as a kid. So I think that's something really amazing that came from the 90s. The idea that kids had to play pretend. Kids don't have to play pretend. I don't know any students that any of my students or kids that play pretend. I know some of them choreograph dances. That's creative, but it's not playing pretend. You know, where are the storytellers going to come from if kids don't start at an early age having to create a story? Where are the playwrights going to come from? The fan fiction writers. Oh no, will there be a world without fan fiction one day? And let's just talk about the fact that the same fan fiction sites that I used to read in the 90s are still active today. I don't miss that. I'm still reading them. Can't miss something you have. But yeah, I think that might be the thing I miss the most from the 90s. Just having to play pretend, but also being able to play pretend. But I guess I don't miss it because I do it.
Like I remember, and it's funny that we mentioned me being a Ninja Turtle when I was a kid in like 5th and 6th grade. I remember running around with my friends in recess and pretending like, oh yeah, well, I'm Michelangelo, you're so-and-so, you're April O'Neil. And like we'd run over to like the sewer grate and we'd jump on it and we'd pretend that we went down into the sewers. And then we'd go over to like the monkey bars and that was like the tracks above us and things like that. We'd create these whole worlds. Basically, you're outside on wood chips and grass and metal bars. In your head, you see the worlds you envision. You didn't see the grass and the wood chips and the bars. You didn't see that. And that's just really incredible. Absolutely incredible. And I think that is definitely the thing that I miss most from the 90s. I was going to say something else, but I got so wrapped up in your story, your retelling of that. Oh, yes, that's what I was going to say. I think at this point, it was probably 10 years ago, maybe. South Park did an episode where the boys were playing Star Trek in Cartman's or Kyle's mom's van. And they were pretending it was a shuttlecraft. And I'm literally watching that going, oh my gosh, it's my childhood. I'm Kyle. But my mom is like way cooler than Kyle's mom, but that's fine. But I'm just saying I'm Kyle because I'm Jewish. But I remember doing that. And I wonder if that episode were to air today, would that be a foreign concept for kids? Because it's nothing against video games. I love video games. I played at least 2 hours of Goat Simulator the other day. I'm obsessed. I love video games. I played World of Warcraft for an uncomfortable 10 years of my life and Final Fantasy 11 for an uncomfortable 15 years of my life. But yeah, 15? 14? I don't know how many years, but it was enough. It was enough for me to call myself an addict. I love video games, but I think kids don't play pretend anymore because they play in a world that has been visually created, in a world that has already given them the storyline. You pop open your Xbox, you put in, or I guess you don't have game discs anymore, you just download them. But let's just pretend that you put a game in and it's Call of Duty. You didn't make up the story. You didn't make up the reason that your guy has to fight. You are playing the story that was given to you. Among Us, is there a story? Basically, you're just running around and your mission is to fix all the problems on the ship before the imposters kill everybody. Yeah,
but you didn't make that story.
No, there is no story really. It's just...
and you don't have to pretend that wood chips and grass are your sewer and where you're going to go fight Toka and Razor. It's already there. It's visually there for you. You don't have to imagine it. So I guess we'll see. We'll see how this affects the future. I mean, if we make it out of 2020 anyway, but I think I miss creativity. And it's not that there's not creativity these days. It's that it's a different kind. I think I miss that kind of creativity, but I'm grateful for how it affected me today. I'm grateful for what it has done for me. Noise complaint literally exists because I love to play pretend. So
I'm in noise complaint because I love to play pretend.
Sure.
And tap dance.
And go to cons. But yeah, I miss so many things from the 90s. We need to do more of these episodes where we just talk about things we miss from the 90s, but we're also going to talk about things that we don't understand today because we're still stuck in the 90s. So mentally stuck there. There are things I don't get. And, my students today or like my friends that are up with the times, they're always like, seriously, Jen? And I'm like, yo, I'm not jumping on that train. I can't do it. And then there's movies, like we can talk about movies from the 90s that they've remade and talk about what we like, what we don't like. We have so much to talk about, but it's not just going to be about the 90s. We're going to talk about other things too. But the theme, couple of kids from the 90s trying to navigate the world, that's to give you our perspective. That's the perspective that all of this is coming from. We didn't create that perspective for this podcast. That's literally the perspective that we have. And when we realized that, we said, oh, there's our angle for the podcast. So did you like how I came full circle back to the podcast? I did that good.
She just did a big old U-turn.
This is my first time ever. I don't think I've heard one podcast in my life.
I'm just notorious for watching podcasts because it's just something that I throw on when I'm drawing or working, editing, or working. I
listen to the Delta Flyers. It's Robert Duncan McNeil and Garrett Wong's podcast, this Star Trek thing. I listen to that. That's it. That's the only podcast I've ever heard. And it's not like a normal podcast. It's really just Tom and Harry talking. So, yeah. But this is Safety, Scissors, and Duct Tape talking. Yeah. So it works.
Yeah. So I definitely love the idea of us getting to talk about what's going on in the world. Yeah. And whether it's pop culture, movie, music,
and
anything.
We have such a unique perspective because people call us millennials or they call us older millennials. And then some people are like, well, you're not quite a millennial, but you're not Gen X either. I found that there's like a subgroup called Xennials, Xennials or something. And it's like that weird hybrid time between Gen X and millennial where you didn't grow up with the technology already there. You grew up, and as you grew, the technology grew with you. And you started with literally like, my first video game was Brickle on that little tiny square Mac. That's what a Xennial would be. Somebody who just not a Gen X, not quite a millennial. Like, we don't understand avocado toast, but we know how to do other things that Generation Xers are just like, wait, what? Well, actually, Gen X is like the cool generation now. But we have such a unique perspective, and that's the perspective that you guys are going to get here.
So I'm super excited to hang out with you and just talk about everything.
Yeah, that's what we do. We talk. And we're probably going to go live on Instagram right after this and talk some more. So, yeah.
So, we got to remember that there's Pogs in the world.
There are?
We need more. We need to bring back Pogs.
Yeah, I still have some.
I miss my Pogs. We should play. I don't know what happened to all mine.
I don't know either.
Honestly, they're probably in a box in my mom's house.
Probably.
I got everything. Ooh, that's what we should do when I go up north.
Yeah, I should get your Pogs.
And at my father's house, I got all my old Ninja Turtles.
Oh my gosh, I don't have any of that stuff from childhood. My mom's just like, nope. But
I had it and I just threw it in my dad's garage and was like, I'll get it next year. That was 2000. But so this has been a lot of fun.
Oh, so much fun.
So
I'm loving this.
If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you hit that subscribe button so that we can be notified, but make sure you hit that bell because basically that'll send you a page to your phone to let you know when we...
Yeah, like a pager. I used to have a purple one. It was see-through.
I had a see-through blue one. Never liked blue when my grandma got it for me.
It's okay. So. My dad gave me his and his was purple and his favorite color was purple.
Yeah. So hit that bell that way you can get that page when we go.
I don't know what they need to do for podcasts. Like, I think you save it. So save this podcast because we want friends to talk to. Join our friend group, which is not going to be called a toolbox because you guys are not tools.
So we're gonna be figuring out exactly where we're gonna be putting this on which podcast sites. Yeah,
it'll be available on some podcast sites that we will discuss later. Obviously, you found it if you're listening to it.
So. Hello, thanks for finding us.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm Safety Scissors,
and I'm Duct Tape,
and we appreciate you hanging out with us. Stay cool. Bye.
Bye.